Hey there and welcome back to MurderTube. Well, the case that I have for you today is a really interesting one because it's not as black and white as a lot of the other murder cases are. This one has some grey areas and may leave some people on the fence as to if this murderer is a good person or a bad person, and if their victims deserve to die or should still be alive today. This is the case of Stephen A. Marshall. Stephen was an American-Canadian. He was born on the 9th of August 1985 in Fort Worth, Texas. It was a few years later though that his family moved to Canada, and more specifically Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. His parents would end up getting divorced and his dad would move back to the US, but Stephen stayed with his mother and his sister. Now Stephen was a skinny kid, and because of this he was bullied quite a lot at school. The bullying was at times very severe, and his mother actually pulled him out of that school due to the numerous ongoing bullying incidents. A few years later, Stephen moved back to the US to live with his dad in Idaho. In Idaho, Stephen was actually able to make some more friends, and he actually had a bit of a better childhood. Him and some of his friends actually made their very own little organization called the SLACKER'S Coalition in Arms, whose main goal is to provide advice for protecting yourself from the tyrannical educational institution. So yes, these kids would help you protect yourself from the big bad school. A teacher knew Stephen to be emotional, a little angry. He wasn't in bad trouble, but he was rebellious a little bit. He was sometimes a class discipline problem. He was a kid that had a distrust and dislike of authority and thought he was fighting the good fight, but he wasn't really a threat or a danger to the school. Around 2000, the 14-year-old started his own website. The website had some of the sweetest pics of weapons that you can find anywhere, and listed his personal dislikes. That included minorities getting special treatment, men who don't keep their women in line, asthma, women in general, the beautiful people, my job, cleaning, school, society, the disgusting commercialization of our daily lives, the economic system, capitalism, but it'll do for now, rich people, the United Nations, a world government, the feds, the man and his rules, civil oppression, and the Patriot Act of 2001. In April of 2001, Stephen was arrested and charged with felony aggravated assault that involved him and an assault rifle. Now it sounds a little bit worse than it actually was. One of Stephen's friends and another teen were fighting on the front lawn of Stephen's dad's house. Stephen had told the other kid to let his friend go, and they continued to fight. So Stephen went inside the house, grabbed an assault rifle, and came back out the front door and threatened the kid to leave his friend alone. Of course, the police were called and Stephen was arrested, and for this he received 6 months of probation. On top of that, he had to complete a hunter safety course, he had to write a letter of apology, and he had to write a 5-page paper on teen violence. Part of the probation also required that he undergo a mental health assessment. The evaluation found that Mr. Marshall's responses do suggest that he's often somewhat questioning of authority and distrusting of the motivations of others. He is likely to be quite introspective and calculating in his actions. The evaluation concluded that no significant psychopathology is present that would have any impact on Mr. Marshall's ability to comply with the conditions of his informal agreement or contribute to the likelihood of his commitment of future crimes. Stephen finished school, and in 2003, the now 18-year-old moved back to Canada. Now surprisingly, for someone that distrusted and disliked authority so much, he desperately wanted to join the Canadian military. He was informed that he could not be accepted due to his asthma. This is one of the main things that led to his depression, and for the next few years he ongoingly battled this depression. He got a job as a dishwasher and he was renting with some roommates, but he always kind of struggled with that depression, kind of having some good days and some bad days. In 2006, his mother took him to her church, hoping that that could maybe help him turn his life around a little bit and overcome these issues with depression, as quite often his family could see that he really wasn't himself. And it actually worked. He became very religious, he accepted Christ into his life, and he would attend church every weekend. Things were pretty good for a few months, until April of 2006, when Stephen started to do some things that no one had ever expected. He withdrew $500 from his Canadian bank account and the entire $2,657 from his US account. On the morning of April 12, 2006, he said goodbye to his roommates, telling them he was going to Cape Breton for a few days. He was actually going to the US to visit his dad. He also didn't tell his work that he had be gone, even though he had some shifts scheduled. He made a stop at a Staples and spent over $1,000 on what is believed to have been a laptop and some GPS software. But before he could make it to the US border, his car broke down. So his dad actually made the trip to come pick him up, and they returned together to his dad's house in Maine. It was in the very early morning hours of April 16th that Stephen snuck out of his dad's house, stole his dad's truck, 2 handguns, and an assault rifle, and took his laptop with him. At around 3 a.m., he appeared at the home of Joseph Gray, where he shot and killed him. Over the next few hours, he continued to drive around, specifically going by several homes, until at around 8:15 a.m., he arrived at the home of William Elliott. Stephen shot and killed William, as William's girlfriend was nearby and witnessed it. She, of course, phoned 911 and, along with reporting the crime, told the police the model of the truck and the license plate. At a bus station in Bangor, Maine, Stephen ditched the truck and then went to the bathrooms where he ditched a bunch of ammunition in the toilet tank. He then purchased a bus ticket to Boston and he boarded the bus. It didn't take the police very long to locate the abandoned truck, and that of course led them to the abandoned ammunition and then the discovery of the purchased bus ticket. At around 8 p.m., the Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority police stopped and surrounded the bus that Stephen and numerous innocent bystanders were upon. The 20-year-old Stephen pulled out a handgun and he shot himself in the head. None of the other people on the bus were injured, but 5 of them were blood splattered with Stephen's blood. At his dad's house, he had left a backpack. Inside were survival tools and some books: The Art of War, the SAS Survival Guide, and a Bible. But it was the laptop that gave law enforcement the most information. Along with a digital picture of Jesus armed with an assault rifle knocking on someone's door, he had downloaded the details and addresses of 29 people, all located in Maine. These 29 people were all listed on Maine's sex offender registry. See, Canada's sex offender registry was only viewable to law enforcement, but Maine's was viewable to the public. Joseph Gray had been convicted of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl, and William Elliott had been convicted of having sex with a girl under 16 years of age. The GPS software showed Stephen had gone by the homes of several other sex offenders, but those individuals were unharmed, and it's unsure as to why. None of his friends or family were able to answer why Stephen did what he did. It came as a complete shock to all of them. His roommates and co-workers knew him as this quiet, shy young man. The only links that we know of that Stephen has with sex offenders is when he was a teenager. A couple of his other teenage friends or associates on separate occasions received charges for sexual assault. And when Stephen had moved back to Canada at 18, he briefly lived in a boarding house. Shortly later, someone moved next door in the boarding house, and this older man propositioned Stephen for sex that he turned down. And not long after that, he learned that this older individual was a recently released from jail child predator. Stephen had made the comment to his mother that these child predators and sex offenders were scum of the earth. Some people believe that Stephen was the victim of sexual assault himself. However, if he was, it was kept very secret and there is no knowledge of it. So it brings us to the interesting question as to, was Stephen right or was he wrong? Or maybe somewhere in between. In the eyes of the law, these people had already been caught and convicted and had served their time or were in the process of serving their time. Some people do reform and change. We don't know if his victims would have reoffended or if they had learned from their mistakes and moved on. Although it is uncommon for child predators to just change kind of overnight like that, they do typically reoffend at some point. Whether his victims would have reoffended or not, they already had committed a crime that most people see as one of the worst in life, even the hardest of criminals. And even doing what they do just one time to one person can leave a lasting impact and scar on their innocent victim for the rest of their lives. So let me know what you think as to, did they deserve it? Did they not? Is it kind of a yes and no? I think I know what way most people are going to go, but I'm interested to, see if maybe I'm wrong on that. And of course, difference of opinions, arguments, and debates are perfectly fine in the comments. Just try to keep it somewhat civilized and respectful, which most of you do anyway. Like the video if you liked it, dislike if you didn't. Let me know why. Constructive criticism is always welcome. Let me know on how I can improve these videos for you. And hit that subscribe button, and we'll have another video coming for you this upcoming Saturday. And be safe out there, guys. It is a very crazy world.